Welcome to the Kyla and
Toyah Show.
Welcome back, everybody. We are on episode 6. We're talking about money and misery. Two things. Do they go together? Do they not? We'll find out by the end of the show. The reason why we wanted to talk about money, like on a macro level, lots of people have been on unemployment or being furloughed or looking for jobs, or, maybe things are on hold. The stock market is totally tanked. Last week we also talked about fear and anxiety, and we know that money can lead to a lot of fear and anxiety, stress, and other things. Separately, one of my BFFs, shout out MK, was like, you and Toyah should talk about money. Nobody talks about money. So we thought we would, and we thought we would start by sharing our own personal stories around money and misery and some more goodness. So Toyah, would you like to start?
So, it's just money can become, having it or not having it can become this source of misery, and it can keep you trapped in doing things that you really don't want to do because of the money, or having you feel a certain kind of way because you don't have it. And so I always like to think of, what you have right now, like if you're in a situation where you don't have the money, you don't have, what you need or want, today is not indicative of what your tomorrows have to be like. So struggling today does not mean struggling next year, struggling 5 years, struggling 10 years. You're just making it through and getting as creative as you can right now, and resourceful. And if you have to ask for help, those are the things you're doing now to kind of get through. And then on the flip side, when you have it, if you have it and you're miserable, then there's just that question of what's more important. Is it more important to have all the things, or is it more important for you to be happy? So, when we talk about depression and stress and anxiety, I don't like to be stressed out. So, and again, to always keep it real, when you don't have, when you're how am I going to feed? That's stress. I'm not going to pretend that that's not a stressful situation, but again, your mindset and how you're thinking about it can make it worse. If you're thinking it's never going to end, I'm never going to get out of this. And then with depression, for me, the tie-in is, I was working a corporate job, and I'm not going to say I was just making so much money, but but I had what I needed, and, and so once I was diagnosed with depression, and I was on a medical leave of absence for depression, and it was really just tying all together, how my career and my job plus who I am / was, it just wasn't a good mix. It's kind of like a relationship when you're it's not you, it's me / it's we, us together, this is not going to work. And so I was getting increasingly stressed out the more I was thinking about going back to work. And I was having a whole strategy of, well, I'll go back, but I'll have my note written out for my 2 weeks notice, because I just knew that it wasn't going to work. So it was more I'll go back until, and once I came to the conclusion of not going back, then, the money part comes in. Well, what are you going to do about the money? And you have to make that decision of, is my health and my sanity more important than my paycheck? Does that mean go quit your job with nothing in your bank account and no plan? Not necessarily, but for me, I cashed out my 401k because again, we are not financial advisors. This is not, anything like that. But for me, I was like, this money is sitting there for my future. And it's a future that I might not have or enjoy if I don't get myself together now. So that's kind of what I ended up doing. But just really having the priorities, and, you know, a lot of that ties into how you feel about yourself and how you feel about your ability to get out of tough situations or figure stuff out, or, you know, just being able to say, I'm going to be okay. And people have different faiths or non-faiths, but that ties in too. If you are like, I'm going to be okay, I'm resourceful, and I know my belief in God, my belief in anything that's outside yourself, or extra belief in yourself, wherever your confidence comes from, having some of that always helps when it comes to money. Because if you think to yourself, if you think really poorly about yourself and you think, I'm not smart enough, I'm not this enough, I can never have this, I can never do that, then you'll never, if you have all the nevers, they're going to end up being a never climb out, you know? So that's some of what I would say.
Yeah, I love it all. And thank you so much for sharing about your own personal journey and story leaving your job. I really respect and admire that decision of yours. And that story deeply resonates with me, because I also quit my job as a professor. And I also cashed out my version of 401k here in Korea. And I don't think I even thought it through. Like, I wasn't even like logical, like I won't have a future. I just was like, I'm done, period. And I knew that if I had stayed longer, because I was so depressed, it would not be good for my sanity and for the sanity of my students. And I feel like in education and in anything, you know, any kind of relationship you're in, you want to, like, you know, honor yourself and where you are, and honor the other party. And for me, I have to be transparent. Like, I cannot pretend I'm okay when I'm not. And I think that, you know, ties into, you know, what you're talking about, Toyah, about like, you know, identity and, you know, prioritizing yourself over others and over a job or over money. And I totally am like the same. Like, I have people asking me, like, why'd you leave your cushy job, or how'd you do it? Da, da, da. I'm like, it's like not for everybody. And that's okay. But I think, you know, we are learning through, you know, trial by error. You know, there's a certain threshold that you get to and you realize, wait, I have not been prioritizing my own mental health and mental sanity. And so if I continue on this path, it's like there's no turning back. And I love what you said, you know, about it's not you, it's me, it's we. Because when you get to that point, though, the great thing is then you rebuild, right? So you've like bulldozed, you've rock bottomed out, I'll just speak for myself. You bulldoze that out, and then you start rebuilding. All right, this is what I can handle. This is what I can't handle. This feels good. This doesn't feel good. But all along, like prioritizing yourself and your needs, instead of living in tribal of like keeping up with the Joneses. You know, what are people going to think if this happens? What are people, you know, how are people going to judge me? And I think that's so important. So I'm also curious, Toyah, if you have, you know, strategies or tips or tools that help you get you out of money stress.
So this is probably an editable moment.
Or not. It's called life.
So I I actually have a anti-worry. It's almost like an anti-worry policy, anti-worry lifestyle where like I refuse to do it. And so I've become so used to this way of being that it's hard to get me into the I'm gonna worry mindset. So for me, I look at what can I control, what can I not control? So what are the things that I can do something about, and what are the things that like I can't do anything about that? And so to, torment yourself about a lot of things that you have no control over, or the unknown where you just don't know and there's nothing that you can do to get into the know. I look at that as I'm wasting my time and energy, and I'm making myself more miserable. So it's almost like, last week I talked about the worry session, like worry time. And that was something I didn't make up. I didn't make that up. I read that. But for me, even the idea of getting worried about something, it's natural, right? I know it sounds like a little bit anomaly-ish to be like, I don't worry. But, I look at it like there's a time and a place for that, and it's not now. So instead of getting overly like, oh, I'm not going to have this, and I don't have this, and what am I going to do about that? I'm not there right now. So if I focus on the present, and, with having a business sense means it's not like you ignore the future. It's not that you like put, your blinders on and you just like don't care. You kind of work out, well, worst case scenario, what can I do? And a lot of that isn't what do I want to do. So to get out of tough situations, sometimes we are restricting ourselves because we're only thinking about things that make us ourselves feel comfortable for what we can do to get out of situations. But the reality is, if you think of like, an Armageddon or like something where it's like the boogeyman is coming and like you gotta run, like whatever it is, all of a sudden you got new ideas of how to scrap out of situations. So like when push comes to shove, you're gonna figure this out. You're going to get help. You're going to find the resources that you need. So I just don't let things escalate to, to that point. So that's definitely one. And part of that also is, for me, I would say, don't, like you were saying, keeping up with the Joneses. So part of the extra stress is if you have this facade that like, you've got everything together, or like, whatever it is that you're like putting out to your friends, your family, the world that isn't true, that's a source of more stress for you. And when you like peel that back and you're just like, I don't even know. I don't know. I'm working it out. I don't have the answer. I mean, just me saying that, I don't know if you saw the body language, it felt good. It was like, I don't know. But when you're like constantly got your mind racing of like, I got to project this and I got to be this and I got to pretend this, it's just too much pressure.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I love how you felt into your body around that, because I think that's such a compass, an indicator of where you are with, the stress in your body. Yeah, I love everything you said. And I would add, kind of to your point about, is this permanent? Going back earlier on the show when you were like, is this permanent? And I would just add two other P words that I call the three Ps that they're called the three Ps of positive psychology. So, whenever, and it doesn't only have to be about money, but it's like any situation, right? It's like, is it permanent? Right. And of course, even with Corona, is it permanent? No. Eventually we're going to get a vaccine. We're going to be sitting by the beach or eating our kebabs. We talked about like Middle Eastern food earlier. We're going to be sitting by our kebabs and like, laughing about, oh, remember when we had to do social distancing? So is it permanent, right? Is it personal? Right? Are you the only one in the entire world that's being affected by Corona or money and misery? Right? And then the third question is it pervasive, right? Which means sometimes we feel like when stuff is going wrong in one area of our lives, we feel like it's affecting every single other area when it isn't. So those are 3 questions that are really helpful. And then just asking, because we don't talk about fear and anxiety at school. We don't talk about money in school. So we inherit our money mindset, our fear mindset, our anxiety mindset, our anything mindset from parents, grandparents, people that we've come into contact with. And so just asking, is your money and misery mindset, there's so many M's.
But I love that. I love it.
Money, good thing I have teeth. Is your money and misery mindset, is it yours? And for me, I realized along the way it's not mine. Like, I felt like I had to upkeep a certain image, I had to look a certain way, I had to, and now I'm like Toyah earlier, like, I don't know, we're constantly evolving and like being okay with that, like being okay with not having the control, right? Like the unknown, because like control is an illusion, right? So, worrying about not having control, it's like, where will that get us, right? So, I think it's so great that you're joining us and that we're able to just begin the conversation. Let this be the beginning for you. And if you have any thoughts or concerns or questions, please let us know. As Toyah mentioned, we're not financial experts or advisors. We cashed out our 401ks. So, but we're open to talking about it. And I think that's a step in the right direction, especially so that your thoughts aren't just up here and they're out. And Toyah, is there anything else that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I actually, from a couple of things that you were saying. So one, about the pervasiveness of the situation, because really a lot of times what's happening in one area of your life, sometimes it doesn't affect the others. Sometimes it actually is pervasive. So in this whole money misery mindset is, if it's affecting the other areas of your life, how can you lessen that effect? So like, if I am like feeling a certain way about the money, how can I on purpose, how can I be on purpose about not letting that angst trickle over into my relationships with people, or like, now I'm totally distracted. I'm having, anger and, a little bit of a temper, how can I still, keep it from taking over my entire life, and just really giving thought to that. And that could be something that pushes you to make a change and get extra creative about what can I do, is just really assessing, like, how is this affecting my life? So that's one. And then thinking of what do I need? What do I want? And when you say, is it yours? Why do I want this? Because needs are needs. Everybody needs to eat. Do I need to eat from the best restaurant in town? Do I need to have this type of car? And you might be like, you know what, that's the car that my grandfather had, or my whatever, or I always wanted that, and it's just so cushy. There may be real reasons, and there's no shame in wanting wonderful, great things. I want wonderful and great things. Just know why you want them, and that it's not somebody else's like pressure and desires for you that are making you feel like you have to have more and you don't have enough. When if you scrub all that back, you might be like, you know what, I am happy. If I'm not trying to please all these other people, I'm fine. So, those are some of those would be my in conclusion comments on my end. Did anything else come up for you?
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, I think that it is true that sometimes, one aspect can bleed over. And I think, you know, in terms of the pervasive point, and I think that I love the idea of like the why, right? Like going back even to like our first episode, it's always so good to start with why and go upwards, right? So just unpack it as much as you can, right? So why do I want that car? Well, you know, my dad had that car. Well, why is that important to me? Because, you know, it's important to me to keep things in the family. Great. Well, why is that important to you? Right? And you just keep going until you get to your top why, and you'll find that, oh, wait a second, like Toyah said, right? Wait, I don't need that actually, or I don't feel that that's going to fill me up the way that I thought it would. And then as you were talking about, you know, like I don't have to eat from the top restaurants, or, you know, that pervasive piece, I think it also kind of like what we're experiencing in Corona times is it gets you to a place of creativity, right? Well, maybe I can't have dinner out with friends as much as I'd like to, or I'm saving for something, but I can have like a Zoom call with my friend Toyah. And that's, you know, that's still going to fill me up and light me up the same way. You know, so many things and so many strategies, but yeah, I think that's all for me. What about you?
I think that's all, but like part of me wants to sing again.
Yes. Wait, should we show the new dance move? This one?
Oh, okay, this is Kyla's Get the Giggles Out dance right here. Which I was like, that's just making me laugh more. So that was the dance before we like started to record. And like before we did our first episode, we were talking about songs and like, should we sing? And this was before episode 1. And so I was telling her, my sister used to call me, and like I'd be on the way to work and she'd make up songs and she would sing to me. Isn't that so sweet, right? This is us as adults. She would sing to me songs to make me feel better because she knew I was miserable. And so we were saying, it's like, she called them heart songs, and Kyla was like, that's a thing. I was feeling like money, 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 money. That's the song I was feeling in my heart, which I'm thinking right now I may have to edit this out.
I loved it. I'm going to do the $sign. This is my $sign.
All right. So if you're enjoying it, you want to subscribe, because to be honest, we don't always post as soon as the episodes come out. So you want to subscribe, like it, share, and we will see you next week.